Hello, everyone, and welcome to February's Ananse Tech Community meeting. Let's go ahead and jump right in. As always, this meeting is sponsored and hosted by NTC Tech as well as Sissa Tech. If you're interested in hosting a meeting or so, please let us know. A friendly reminder that all meetings are recorded and posted to our community YouTube channel later. So if you don't wish to be recorded, you can stay on mute and stay off camera, or you can disengage from the call and watch the recording once it's posted. Here's our agenda for today. We just came out of arrivals, and now we're going into the agenda portion. So we're going to meet the team. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Ananse for those of you who have not been acquainted yet. Give our speaker, sponsor, and volunteer call, do some community announcements, and then it'll be speaker time. We have two speakers. We have Kamala, who will be talking in the cybersecurity mindset, and we have Galanda, who will be talking around project management for tech. After both of those sessions, if we have enough time, we will have a networking session, which is totally optional if you want to join it. If you do join in the conversation, we do cut that part out for privacy. But if it's just some persons of our team members or folks that we already know doesn't mind being on the recording, then it will remain. And then we will close. All right. So, oh, whoops, forgot to change the one slide. One slide got me. Okay, so meet the Nancy Community Tech team. We have Harry Carter, myself, Sigil, and Imani as the main co-founders and leads for the team. Ezra has moved on to other opportunities and they will be missed. About Ananse, this is a group for Microsoft professionals, those who may own businesses, those may be early in career, students, enthusiasts, and those who have expertise to speak for the community. Those interested in M365 and Microsoft Office 365, SharePoint, Teams, Power Platform, and technology related. As well as we have talks around career and tech career. The community links are listed on the page, and you can also get social with us by using the hashtags Ananse Tech Community or Ananse Tech. And the QR codes will be listed in the end. So if you miss these community links right now, they will be listed in the end, and it will be posted in the deck when the deck is posted to our community. All right, so now on to the all call. We're always looking for great speakers. So if you have some topics that you wish to share with the community around Microsoft Tech or related tech, or if you have a career topic or a tech career topic, things that'll help people that are in the tech career, we would love to have your topic and have you speak for one of our community calls. So the QR code's on the slide that you can scan and then fill in the form. If you'd like to volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers. So volunteers and speakers, this can be a great resume builder. This is something that you can put on your resume, that you volunteer for a tech community or that you speak at tech communities. For the volunteers, though, if you volunteer with us for at least 3 months, then we will give you a letter of recommendation. That will also be a great resume booster as well. For those who may like to sponsor our upcoming events, especially those when we would like to have them in person or any of our mini conferences that we also would like to schedule later, please reach out to us. You can fill out the form behind this QR code and we will reach back to you. A huge thanks to our current volunteers, Harrison and Samuel. Now on to our community announcements. Remember that sharing is caring. So if you know of any great community announcements, any great tech conferences coming up, any great events, even if they're not related to Microsoft, we would love to be able to announce them to the community. So you can send those to, oops, and I just realized the email address is wrong on here, but you can send it here as well. Apologies, it looks like someone is off mute, so hold on a second. Alrighty, okay. All right. So you can use this email address, but the email address that we're mostly using is anancetech@consultntctech.com. That's anancetech@consultntctech.com. But you can feel free to use this one as well. So we have the AI Conference Africa, that's coming up. That's coming up real soon, the end of next month. Not sure of the cost yet, but you can go out on the web, and we also have the link to the website here to find more information and get more details. We also have a conference alerts list that we found before, so we decided to add it here of some conferences that are coming up around data analytics, machine learning, Internet of Things, AI, things like that. So you may be interested in any of these conferences, although some have already passed. You have a few at the a few at the very the few at the very end that's coming up in March that you may still be interested in. And then here is our new schedule, or the schedule we've been following again. Um, we haven't had a quarterly meeting, but as soon as we are able to hold another in-person meeting, in the meantime, we'll be holding our meetings online as well. On the fourth Thursday of the month, or whenever we have an in-person meeting, it'll actually be on a Saturday instead of a Thursday. But you'll see that announcement when it comes out. And then in not January, December, we take off. All right. So this is a community of learning. So everyone should be, feel free to teach each other. That's why we encourage you to become a speaker. Even if it's your first time speaking, this is a very good environment for you to start speaking in. It's very low pressure. You can get some good feedback, and you can try out your speaking style here. But it's about sharing information about understanding tech and about growing as a community. So we usually have a video, and it's gonna come as soon as PowerPoint decides to go to the next slide. A video around Microsoft Office 365 or Power Platform and the things that it can do, so that you can see from a business perspective how businesses are using the platform. So we'll go ahead and get on this one. All right. Oh, will you let me open it here then? YouTube is getting a little bit more strict about, oh, and then it won't just go straight to it. Or are you? No, you're not. Okay, apologies on that. Next time we'll have a link. That way I can just click on the link and open it in Google or have it open already. So apologies, we're going to skip this since this is going to be hard for me to get to the video. Okay. So now we're about to jump into our speaker time. As I said, we have two speakers tonight. We have Kamala, who is going to give us a talk around having a cybersecurity mindset, and the Galanda, whose topic is less chaos, more clarity, project management for tech. Okay, so I believe we have both of our speakers. So first up, Kamala, are you there and ready to take over the screen? Okay, I see you just came off mute. Don't hear you yet, though. Okay, apologies, folks. It looks like a little bit of technical difficulties. Please stand by. You turned on your camera. We can see that you turned on your camera, but we can't see you. It's like gray. And then we can't hear you even though you're off mic. I mean, off mute. You might want to try leaving and coming back. I think that's probably another resort that you might have to that you go to. And hopefully you can hear us. Okay, said he's still working it out. He thought it was fixed. Okay, so no worries. We also have Galanda. Galanda, are you ready and available? Hey, so let me just go
I
to
sure
your
am.
slide real quick. Okay,
Yes,
and
I
we
am ready and
will
available.
let Kamala
Work it
uh,
out.
figure it out. Yeah, work it out.
We 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 give thanks for these, challenges to give us an opportunity to flex our resilience muscles. So it's all good. All good. Is it possible for you to allow me to be able to share my screen? Because I do have some slides that I'd like to share with the community. All right, there we go. There it is. Thank you. All right, now let me just make sure I get the right window. Okay. All right. Can everyone see the slide? It says less chaos, more clarity. Just a wave, hands up, thumbs up, raise your hand. Okay. So I am very happy to be here. My name is Galanda Brooker. I am a project manager, application administrator, higher ed teacher, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I am here today with the invite because I am passionate about supporting people and learning about technology and being more comfortable with technology. And so today, I'm going to be talking about technology in the realms of project management. And most of the time, people believe that it's really about the tools or about the budget. And I'd like to share there's something else, right? All right. So, why does project management matter in tech? Anybody have any thoughts on that? You can drop it in the chat. What your thoughts is. Why do you think it matters in tech? Anybody? I forgot to say I'm an interactive speaker, y'all. So I'm gonna be asking y'all some questions, and I'm gonna be expecting to see some folks respond. Yes, Nakia.
To make sure the project stays on track because somebody's got
Make
to do it.
Yeah, make sure the project stays on track. Excellent. Harry said to keep everything aligned. All of these are absolutely important, right? But most of the failure is not around the technology, right? It's a communication issue. And we often think when we go into these technology related fields that as long as we are proficient and experienced with the various tools that are available to us, then that means we're going to be successful. But the quiet part out loud is that communication is the basis and the key for a successful career in technology, whether you are doing something that's technically related or you're doing something project related or anywhere in between. Communication is the key to success in whatever field that you're working on, right? Um, and if you think about it, you don't have to respond to this, right? What delayed your last project? The code, like the technology part, or the confusion? Just plant that as a seed. And I see we have a respondent that said project management matters in tech because technology without structure turns into chaos. Ashe, 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 oh. Okay, definitely. So, what project management really is and what it really is not, right? I'm going to say the is nots first, even though it's on the right hand side. It's not endless meetings. It's not the different Gantt charts, Kanban boards, etc. And it's absolutely not micromanagement. That will kill a good project in 2.5 seconds. But what it is that everybody on the team is clear about what you're working towards, right? It means that no matter where the person is contributing to the project, they know their part in the larger scheme of achieving the goal. Another large part of project management is keeping the scope under control. Scope creep is a project manager's nightmare. Okay. And so being able to be proficient and ensuring that the scope creep is minimal, if not at all, is a great part of project management, right? Also, being aware and managing risk and being consistent in your delivery. And this includes that, okay, being on track this week, but then the next 3 weeks you're not on track. So consistency is also a key part of the process. Now, I believe that there are three pillars in project management. I say in tech because this is a tech related group, but this really can apply in whatever area you're applying project management, right? One is the direction. The direction is about purpose. Why are we here? Where are we doing? What are we doing this for? Right? The second is coordination. The coordination is about the people, between the people who are the users, the people who are doing the development, and the people who are making the decisions. So not only is who doing what, but it's about the people at its core. And then control. That's about visibility. And you might say, Galanda, how do you get from how do we know we're on track to visibility? Because the control is the result of the direction and the coordination, right? If the purpose is unclear, then the project drifts. If the people are not aligned, then it's stagnant or it stalls. And if the visibility is weak, then you get surprises, right? So if one of these pillars is weak, then the delivery of your project overall is going to suffer. So I've listed a couple of the most common problems in tech teams, right? Vague requirements, scope creep, which I just alluded to a few moments ago, um, developments priorities versus the business's priorities, and people just saying, well, I thought you meant this. So I'd like to hear from the audience. Which one of these, or maybe even something that's not on this list, have you experienced the most when you're thinking about problems in your technology related projects? What have you experienced that has come up time and time again? You feel free to unmute your mic or just type in the chat, either one. Scope creep. Yes. As I said, scope creep is a big problem. And we're going to talk a little bit more about scope in just a minute. Anybody else? What kind of problems have you seen in your tech teams?
Test, 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 test.
I can
Microphone
hear
test.
you. We
Okay.
can hear you.
Comalize in the building. Okay. Well,
Hey,
let me see. Vague requirements. That's usually a big one. Or they want the
vague
project
requirements.
done, but don't know exactly what they want from the project. So you gotta try to fill in the blank as best you can, hoping that it meets their requirements. I say that's a big one
Absolutely.
that I've dealt with.
Vague requirements. That's when they have this lofty idea of what they want to achieve, but they don't have any clarity on what that looks like at the end. They just like, oh, we want a new CRM system. Okay, well, what do you want the system to do? Well, we just want to keep track of customers. That's not enough, right? That's vague requirements. I see someone in the chat has also said poor communication, right? So Poor communication could be the developer has talked to someone and said, hey, I got these vague requirements over here and I can only go this far. And the person says, okay, well, you know, just go ahead and do it the way you think is best. Instead of reporting up or back or around the chain to say, hey, we need clarity on these requirements so that the development can continue, right? Poor communication. And then we have another one, bad backlog refinement. So prioritizing wrong features over others. Oh my goodness, we got a lot of good ones here today, right? So Timothy it says, what happens is the backlog is what are all of the things that we need to do? And then those have to be prioritized so that they can be implemented. And he is saying when they are not prioritized properly, then the features, the results do not come out well. Those are all really, really great examples of problems in tech. Okay. Now, scope, which we have mentioned before, is what I call the silent killer, right? And my rule is if it wasn't written, estimated, and agreed, then it's not included, right? Now you might say, okay, Galanda, that's unrealistic because things change. And that's where change management comes into play, right? However, if there's no change management, then we should be Xing a lot of things. Technology teams underestimate scope constantly, but I will tell you from my experience that the business folks underestimate scope constantly, right? Before it even gets to the technology team, the business folks think, oh, well, you should be able to do this in XYZ team, not having the understanding or the expertise to accurately scope, right? And that's why it's really important to have people with certain expertise on your team so that you can estimate more accurately. So, what is scope for people who might not be as familiar with scope, right? Features plus the constraints plus what's done. The features are the functionality, right? What is this that we're delivering, right? What are the user stories, meaning what are the cases for this product or this service that's are being included? And most importantly, right, and features is what problem are we solving, right? Most projects, the end thing is there has been some issue that needs to be resolved. And so this is being implemented to meet that need, right? But that has what we call constraints, right? So the features is the value. We're going to solve a problem and deliver certain functionality to meet that need. The constraints is the reality. It's what limits us in being able to do that, right? I'll give y'all a guess. I'd like to see what do you think are some common constraints that could affect the scope? It's probably three, four, five. I've got budget, timeline, and capacity on there. Anything else? Anything else anybody can think of that might be a constraint within a project, a limitation in being able to be successful in a project?
Coordination or collaboration.
Coordination and collaboration, going back to my initial point of communication. Communication is absolutely, or lack thereof, can be a constraint, right? Oop, do I need to reshare there? Okay, window. Uh, okay, share. Okay, right. So in addition to the budget, timeline, and capacity, right? The technology could have limitations. So whatever your tech stack is, there can be limitations there as well, right? Compliance or security requirements. That I have also seen quite a bit in terms of constraints, right? The marketing department wants to be able to say this, do that, And the legal department says, you can't say all that stuff, right? So there's some compliance and security requirements around that. And then also integrations. What does this product or service link to? That could also be a limitation in being able to complete a project. And then the third component is, what is the definition of done? And this goes back to what Kamla was saying about the vague requirements and definition of done is directly correlated. Okay. The definition of done varies throughout team members within a project, right? Done could be, is the code complete? Has it been tested? Has it been deployed? But that's not all. Done could also mean, has it been adopted? Is the documentation complete? Right? So done could have different meanings for different team members. And knowing what those are contributes to whether or not we really know what done means. Okay. So for example, the development team, they finish the code. They say, okay, it's done. Right? But quality assurance says, well, it hasn't been tested. So in their mind, it's not done. The product team says, well, the code is done, it's been tested, but we still can't use it. It's not usable. So from their perspective, it's not done, right? All of these things, it could be the code completed, it's been tested, they are using it. And then leadership says, well, it's not live. So because it's still in a pre-delivery phase, it's not done for them. So really understanding what done means is important, right? The summary here is, if value ignores reality, then quality collapses, right? It's not a technical failure, it's a scope clarity failure, okay? Scope is not about saying no, it's making the reality visible, making the reality visible, okay? So as I said, communication is 70% of the work, right? You can have all the technology things in place, but if the stakeholders don't understand where it is in the progress, then it could be considered a failure, right? If each team doesn't understand their priority, then it could be considered a failure. And if risks are not assessed and managed early and often, it can be considered a failure. And as a project manager or a member of the project management team, all of these things have to be taken into account when managing the project. Okay. Now, for those who may not be as familiar, what is risk? Okay. Um, Dependency delays. We need to have these 3 modules done by this time so that the next team can start working on that, right? They're not finished, so now there's a delay. That's a dependency delay, when a pre-requirement is not complete before the time for the next section, right? Another big one, which we are trying to work on here on the continent in Ghana, is talent bandwidth. You might have some people who have the knowledge and capacity, but there might be so much work that they don't have time for it, right? So you need more people, more people resources in order to be able to be successful in the project. And then changing requirements, which we've talked about quite a bit, right? That's essentially scope creep, which is our number one enemy that we try to stop, right? It can be managed with change management, but that's a whole nother topic. But changing the requirements because they aren't clear in the beginning is a huge risk. And then integration issues. If your product is supposed to integrate with another product, let's say your Microsoft product is supposed to integrate with some other product, and there are some problems with the API, that's going to be a risk, and that's going to be a problem, okay? Oftentimes, in project management, we hear the term agile, right? And agile really is just about the ability to create and respond to change. Agile does not mean that there is no structure. That's not what it means, that it's just totally fluid and things keep going, right? Agile still requires that you have a clear backlog. That was listed by one of the community members when we were talking about what could be a risk, right? Backlog refinement. So, not a clear backlog is a clear requirement for agile work, right? Making sure the priorities defined. That's part of clear scope, right? Transparent metrics. What am I being measured on? How much I get done in a certain time frame? Is it on time? Making sure everybody understands that, and that leadership that understands all of these pieces well enough to motivate and evaluate whether people are staying on track with it. So within the scope of having less chaos in your tech projects, here are some things that you can do as not only the technical project manager, but even if you are part of the project management team, making sure you have a clear understanding of the outcomes before you start the work, right? Making sure you have clear outcomes. What is it that is supposed to be delivered? What is my part to play in this, right? Also understanding what are the documentation decisions. In addition to working in tech, I also teach higher ed. And one of the things that I teach coders is put notes in your code, right? Document what's going on here. Don't make the assumption that the next programmer is going to know what you were intending with this module, right? So document decisions, right? Also, making sure that you foster an environment where your team members can talk to you so that you can get knowledge of the risk fast, right? That's the surface the risk early. You have to foster an environment that people feel comfortable to let you know, hey, I can identify something is going to be a problem and let you know sooner than later, right? All of this is best done on a weekly basis, minimally, right? On a weekly basis. That way, everybody can stay on track and stay together on what it is that we're doing. It also reinforces what the objectives are, what the constraints are, and what you can do moving forward, right? And then your job as the project manager is to protect the team from the scope noise. That's any scope creep, that's any delays, etc. When that additional business team member comes and they want to add a bunch of features that was not in the original scope, or they want to change what's on the backlog priority, that's your job to protect the team and say, we've already decided, it's already on our schedule, and here are the effects of doing that. And so we're going to have to deny that request. Okay. So protecting the team members from the scope noise. And then finally, right, in terms of less chaos and more clarity, if you do nothing else, you want to make sure that you define what done is clearly. Document what that is, what the objective is, what the outcome is very clearly, right? You want to be able to track at least one metric. And you say, okay, what are some types of, well, let me go back. You want to be able to track done clearly, right? So again, just to kind of revisit, is done meaning it's tested? Does done mean it's deployed? Does done mean it's adopted? Does done mean it's documented? What does done mean? But those are some of the questions that you can ask to clarify what done is, right? With the metrics, you want to pick something. There's going to be several metrics that you're going to have to measure, but you're going to want to have at least one that clearly defines and track it, right? So for example, some metrics could include your work in progress. This is how many tasks are active at one time. And knowing this lets you understand the bandwidth and if there's possible delays coming in your system, right? You might also choose cycle time, which is the average time from when work starts to completion as a metric, okay? Or how long a task remains blocked, right? These are just some examples of metrics that you can use to track to help you be to reduce the chaos in your projects, right? And then lastly, ask what could blow this whole thing to pieces every week. And depending on the project, you might be asking even multiple times in the week, right? You might have a beginning of the week and a midweek check in, but at least weekly, what is going on that could stop this project from meeting its objectives with our existing constraints and the time that we've been given and meet the needs of done for all parties involved? You need to be asking that every week, right? And all of these require communication on the part of the project manager. A lot of times, you might have heard that a projects manager is herding cats, meaning it's really difficult to get everybody together. And so that's why there's those people with that special skill, patience, and communication to communicate with the different parties in the way that works best for them, gather that information, and present it back to the different members of the team. So that's all I have for today in terms of less chaos, more clarity, and how you, as a project manager or even a member on a project team, could have more clarity, less chaos in your project teams. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And if you have any questions, the floor is open.
Okay. Yes, thanks, Gavanda. I do not know what is up with my background. Um, so if anybody has any questions, now's the time. You can come off mute or you can put the questions in the window and we will read it off.
Yeah. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate that. While we're kind of like just transitioning to the next speaker, maybe drop in the comments what is one thing from the presentation that kind of stuck out in your mind? Like you saw that and was like, yep, that's one thing. I either didn't know that or yes, I totally agree with that. Drop that in the comments. Or you can come off mute and speak as well.
I had, again, yes, great presentation. I'm doing two things. One, making sure all my equipment works before I present, and to also
Absolutely.
answer, and to also answer questions. In regards to, well, ask questions. My question was, what has been the most significant process when it comes to vague projects? Like, is there a baseline questionnaire that you would have for your customer or your client to say, okay, you want it to do this, this, and this. Um, is there a I guess you want to say, okay, for example, if someone says, hey, like you mentioned before, well, I want a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say, okay, what do you want the car to do? Well, I want it to
Mm-hmm.
drive. Okay, well, how fast do you want it to drive? I wanted to
Right.
go between 0 to this. Oh, okay, at how fast? How many seats do you want in it? Do you want an extra steering wheel? Do you want it to be remotely controlled? Do you want a camera in the back? Where back? Those questions for a project. Is there a have you come up with a or have seen someone create a process where if someone comes in with a project and they have all these what their great ideas of how it's supposed to work,
Mm-hmm.
outside of
Yeah.
those who may not have the experience, how do they engage that client to make sure they are meeting that client's expectations?
Sure. There are probably, I have seen some resources that have like kind of a base questionnaire to help narrow down what the scope is because your job oftentimes as a project manager is to help come up with a project plan. And so they come up to you with the vast idea and then your job is to put it in this much. So yeah, they're generally a few questions, and if that's something that people are interested in, I can definitely put that together and share with the community. That's a starting point. But really, it's going to be it's going to be limited by the constraints. So I'll give you an example, right? One of the things I do implementation for project management software. And so with these implementations, the major constraint is the time, right? Like, so we'll say that the time that the customer has to be able to implement is 20 hours, right? And so when I'm inquiring with the client, I'm inquiring to them, they can tell me, basically, they can give me their whole wish list. And then I say, okay, based on what you've given me, this is what's feasible in the time period that you have available to you. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's budget, sometimes it's resource, right? But I generally, and a lot of project managers would disagree with this approach. I encourage brain dump. Give me everything. Give me your whole big wish list, right? So I have an idea of what are all the things that you have on your mind to do. Then I can tell you, okay, you can only do this much from this much. But what that also does is the client or potential client thinks it's something small. What they're asking for is not a lot. But once they've shared with you and it's down on paper, documented, and they can see, oh, I thought it was one thing, but it's really seven things, then you get a little better understanding. They get a little better understanding of why they can't have the big thing because it's not one thing, it's seven things that you've asked for. So, yeah, there's usually a couple of questions, but what they can do is generally limited by one of their time or budget constraints. But I let them, or the other limitation is what is the biggest pain point or problem, right? That can also be one of the ways that you help narrow down what it is that the client wants, because they might have unlimited budget. Yay for us, right? But what is their biggest pain point? And then that will help you narrow down the scope of what it is that you're working on. I see some hands up. Harry, I think that is the hand up.
Yes, yes. One of the things that you spoke about earlier was that stuck out to me was project manager being the shield between the client and the tech team. Could you
Mm-hmm.
elaborate on that and also speak on why is that so important?
Yes. So the project manager should be your guardrail. You really should not have clients communicating directly with the majority of the team. And the reason is they don't understand each other. They are not speaking the same language, right? The stakeholders are speaking business language. Your team members are speaking technical languages, and you are the translator in between the two of them. The other part of it is it reduces stress for the team. When they have a single point or maybe one or two people that they have to report to, that they can take their concerns to, it makes communication much easier. Some say it's a bottleneck. I tend to disagree, right? But when you have, just think of it this way. Is it easier to go to one boss or is it easier to go to four bosses? It's clearly easier to go to one. So the project manager should be serving as the shield so that the team members, the technical folks, can focus on what they do best, right? They should be able to focus on whatever it is. If they're user stories, then they should be doing that. If they're graphic designers, they should be doing that. If they're database folks, they should be doing that. They should not be spending their time answering questions to stakeholders about stuff that they not only don't know about, but frankly, they just don't care about that stuff anyway. And so the project manager should be serving as a liaison, right? The bridge between the two.
Thank you for that, Galanda.
You're welcome. All right. I don't want to take up too much time, but again, thank you all for having me. I really enjoyed being here. I can't wait to the next one. And I hope that you all got some value out of today's session and looking forward to the next presenter.
Yeah, thanks so much, Galanda. I mean, you dropped so many nuggets. Every time I was about to be like, but there's, and maybe everybody else then took it. So, so that was a great presentation, great question and answer session. Really appreciate it. So next up, we have, and Galanda will be on the call. So if you have questions, and even if she has to drop off and you have a question, you can let us know and we can definitely make sure that she gets it. So next up, we're going to put on our cybersecurity um, thinking caps, as they used to be called back in the day, at least in the States. I don't know if y'all said that over here in Ghana, but putting on your thinking cap. But Kamala is going to help us to get that cybersecurity mindset that we should have in today's fully digitized world almost. You're still on mute, Kamala.
Okay, I wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to present at this organization. I think I'll enjoy myself to actually engage in speaking more often on this platform. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I had a lot of security features, funny enough, which not allow my camera and my mic to work. So I got those working now. I'm going to get started, but I also am going to get a little bit of my background in the slide as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see my screen clearly? Should be a white screen. Can everyone see that? Okay,
I can see
great,
it.
great. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So we're gonna name of the company is Crawford Systems, and the subject we're going to talk about is establishing a cybersecurity mindset. We are doing this on behalf of the Ananse Tech Community, outsmarting threats and weaving winning projects. I love that concept. So we're going to go and get start with the objective. And the objective is, what is cybersecurity, right? And then why should we have a cybersecurity mindset, right? So this lecture is not a lecture. It's more of like a workshop. It's going to be very interactive. And I want to have a let's talk conversation at the end of the presentation if I'm not asking any questions during the presentation. But I guess the big question people would ask was, why should we care, right? Why should we care about cybersecurity? Well, let's first start out with what is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is defending data and information on equipment, networks, and systems from unauthorized access, manipulation, distribution, exposure, and theft. Now, cybersecurity operates under three pillars. These three pillars are called acronyms for these three pillars, the CIA. The C stands for confidentiality, the I stands for integrity, and the A stands for availability. This security model pertains to the security concepts that form the basis for developing a security system. Okay, so to give you the definitions of what these are and some examples, the definition of confidentiality is preserving authorized restrictions on information access and disclosure, including the means for protecting personal privacy and proprietary information. Some examples of that or tools that we use to maintain the confidentiality of information is encryption. And we know we use encryption a lot in today's world due to a lot of different types of attacks like ransomware attacks and things of that nature. Encryption works in two main functions. One, to hide the data as it is in transit, and to also hide it when it gets to its destination. Depending on what type of encryptions that you use, determines or what type of system you would like to use to protect your data, determines which type of encryption you'll be utilizing. We also more simpler way of confidentiality. We're talking about locked doors and rooms. Server rooms, offices with sensitive documents require key cards or biometric data or biometric entry or PIN numbers to access these rooms to get access to these files. Um, Password protection. We use this a lot when it comes to accessing applications or accessing equipment, using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. These are, again, tools that are used to help maintain the confidentiality of information and actually equipment as well. The second was integrity, right? Guarding against improper information modification. or destruction and ensuring information, non-repudiation, and authenticity. Now, I can say that non-repudiation is not something, a term that we use in our everyday vocabulary. All it really means is that you cannot dispute that you were the one that did something, or you were not the one that accessed something, right? And so um, part of the integrity process for cybersecurity, we use software systems like checksums or hash values. Some of these are embedded in some of the applications that people create, some of the social media platforms that we are on, and even in some of the banking systems. So verifying files have not been altered during a download or a transfer is what check hashes actually do. We're also talking about, from a physical standpoint, tamper evidence seals. These stickers are seals that show if hardware has been opened or containers have been, or to, yeah, pretty much if something has been opened that may contain some type of sensitive information. This seal is broken. This is a clear sign that this hardware has been, if it has not been gotten into, someone tried to tamper with it. And therefore, an investigation should be started just from that tamper seal being damaged. We also have audit logs, recording who accessed something, when they modified, and what they modified. This also implies when it comes to integrity. And we also have a saying in cybersecurity when it comes to something being written down. If it's not written down, it never happened. That is also key when we're doing things like vulnerability assessments. Also key when you're doing audits, forensics. All of these things are incorporative logging. If you did not log it or it is not logged, then we can't justify that it actually happened the way we're saying it happened. One of the things that a lot of hackers like to do when they're able to infiltrate systems is get access to the logs that's tracking everything they're doing. For example, in the event logs, and then they figure out how to erase or refresh the logs so that the information cannot be seen on the local endpoint device. Solutions around that would be installing some form of agents or some type of endpoint security that would manage the monitoring of that endpoint device. We're also talking about availability. Availability ensures timely and reliable access to information by authorized users. And so we're talking about physical security guards. They're preventing unauthorized access to physical locations without authorization. We also are dealing with load balancing, which is distribution traffic across multiple servers to prevent overload. There used to be a really big vulnerability when it came to website designs because a lot of them did not put the proper configurations in to stop a denial of service attack or a distributed denial of service attack. There's very big attacks. Well, I won't say they're very big, but they're still common. But they were really big back in the early 2000s when people were shutting down websites by sending it multiple packets, and the servers could not um, handle the workload that was coming at that time. So now a lot of uh, data centers have put a lot of redundancies and load balancings into their configurations of their uh, public facing websites and servers. We're also dealing with generator backup power, keeping data center running during power outages. I remember we had a situation where someone was asking the question, well, if are all hacks done externally? And I explained to them, actually, the majority of them are done internally. And the ones that are done internally, there's a high percentage of those that are done accidentally. For example, people putting their server racks together and forgetting to plug them into UPS, or what we call uninterrupted service. These are batteries that are designed to hold the power for the server for, say, mostly 30 minutes, which allows for the administrator to either remote in or go physically to the machine and shut it down properly to reduce data loss or corruption of the data and so to prevent a what we call a hard shutdown. Okay. Now those are the three pillars. I know I went through it kind of fast. I apologize. I do speak fast. So if anybody can always raise your hand and say, hey, could you slow it down a little bit? And I will do so. So I apologize for not saying that in the beginning of this presentation. But those three pillars is what cybersecurity um, governs cybersecurity. But the question you may ask, well, what is the purpose of all this? Well, the purpose is to protect assets. What is an asset? An asset is anything that has value to someone or a corporation. Some examples of that could be buildings, vehicles, computers, land, and believe it or not, culture and people. Now, when I start talking about the culture and people aspect of cybersecurity, people ask the question, well, how is this tied to cybersecurity? And I would tell them, well, who's on the network outside of now AI, but it's people. So if people are on the network, then people are also subjected to being vulnerable to attacks as well as being the attackers themselves. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we have to think about the individual person and their mindset as to why they do the things that they do. Culture. Culture is multifaceted. People are online for a variety of reasons. Um, and even in the workplace that you're working in, when it comes to culture, we are looking at, of like I said, a multitude of levels of how we're interacting as people amongst ourselves with information flowing, misinformation flowing, and all these things can be utilized as an asset and also can be used against us because it is an asset. Misinformation travels way faster on the internet than truth does. So if someone's putting out false information about about something in regards to your company because they used to work there, now the company has to do a PR to try to figure out what's going on. Is this information true? Um, and it takes a while to figure out if this is a what we call it, if this affects the company as an asset. Companies are very big on their value. Their brand is everything. So um, culture, how they operate externally and how they operate internally, can determine whether or not people even want to do business with that corporation. We're seeing a lot of this now in the US with administrations and telling companies what to do, and certain companies taking a stand against it. Some companies are for it. And therefore, in that process of culture, people's ideologies change on that company and that company's perspective on how they see things. And that again includes people. But what is a critical asset? A critical asset is that one that is essential and can cause significant impact to a person or a corporation. I mentioned land. So compromising a land's ecosystem can be considered a critical asset. We have a variety of ways that we look at threats from a cybersecurity perspective. Weather is one of them. If you're in a location that is below the sea level and you're maybe 2 or 3 miles from the coast of the ocean or whatever, or you're on an island and you're in a hurricane zone, this is something that you must think about when it comes to having a business continuity plan and a disaster recovery plan, because flooding would be at the top of your list when it comes to looking for possible threats, depending on the season. How you design your network, how you build your building out, all these, as you would say, projects must be included and thought about when implementing these types of preventions. Culture. Culture can also be a issue. Learned coming up in the late 90s and cybersecurity became really big when I was in the military. There was a big cultural backlash towards cybersecurity. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to be a part of it because of all the accountability that came with it and the extra work that was put in to implement it. So many organizations, usually, well, mainly I can only talk about the United States Navy, removed a lot of upper ranked people who did not want to switch over to the new culture of security first. So, like I have here, as the loss of purpose, understanding, and the inability to maintain its identity. It's very key if you are a CEO operating in a business and you have a cultural mindset that you want to maintain. Security is one of the big ones. If you are a CEO and you are very relaxed about security and you are very relaxed about protocols and meeting regulations, then guess what? Those who you work for are going to have the same mindset, and that is a recipe for disaster. We're also talking about, like I said, building electrical systems are considered critical assets. Everything is almost everything is not almost everything, but so many things are now moving and migrating to smart technology, IoT devices, using AI implementation, and these things are all tied to some type of electrical grid. Without proper redundancies put in place, this would be considered a critical asset if someone wanted to cause some type of harm or damage to your system or the information that you have on it. Vehicle navigation systems. So as I talked about vehicles, they're now putting more and more computers inside vehicles. And I don't think, from a cybersecurity perspective, that is very smart, mainly because there is very little encryption when it comes to installing this information. There were a couple of hacks in the, I think in 2015. We can always talk about those later. Like, I forgot the name of the company, but I think it was Jeep Cherokee. I think it was a Jeep Cherokee. They had to do a big recall because if you was able to remote into the machine and get access to the media, when you can like change the radio, or whatever, you also had access to the steering wheel. You also had access to the gas pedal, the brake pedal. You had access to almost everything that was tied to that computer because it was sitting on one bus. It wasn't put in a they didn't segment the network. It was all sitting on one bus. So if you had access to one thing, you had access to everything. They had to do a huge recall. A lot of money was spent in them trying to recall all those devices because they were now understand that, if people can walk up to a car and use some type of device to access it remotely or remotely look at it through GPS, then that means if you can get into one system, you can creep into another if the proper protocols are not put in place. So we're also talking about sensitive data being stored on computers. Um, Nowadays, a lot of people are forgetting the concept that a smartphone is a computer. So I try to remind people that that is a small computer in your hand. It is not a phone. It is a computer that is allowing you to communicate digitally or through a mobile network. But if it is a smartphone, then it is a computer, right? And we have our own terminology of what smart stands for. So that's a whole other conversation. um, so let's have this conversation about technology and where we are going from a cybersecurity mindset. Um, I can speak on many subjects in regards of technologies from AI to simple IoT implementation to system management to project management when it comes to building out an actual network. What are you looking to build? And then my question is, okay, well, how are you going to protect it once you build it? Who's supposed to have access to it? How long are they supposed to have access to it? And when can you remove access as needed if the wrong people get access to it? So these things are very important when it comes to cybersecurity and networking. My biggest, at the time, my biggest, I would say, rival when it came to cybersecurity was software developers. They just did not understand the process of building out the software with the security features in place, especially if the customer did not request it. They just want it to work. That's it. And I go, yeah, but they don't understand cybersecurity. And I'm here and I'm trying to explain to you that you need to set up two-factor authentication for this. Well, the customer says it's going to take too much time. Well, the customer's going to have to deal with that after you explain the regulations to them. We can't build the software this way, sir, because the platform that you want it on has a lot of sensitive data transferring through it. So you have to set up multi-factor authentication. And so these things must be implemented. And we can't, there are things that we can mitigate, and there are things that we have to stand 10 toes in. Like, we're not going to let that happen, right? Regardless of the money or the project, this would do more harm than good. And when it comes to AI, I still ask a lot of the people who are AI influencers, we think more of what we can do rather than should we do it. And I think that's something that all of us in tech really need to have a sit down and a real discussion about. Should we do something just because we can? You know what I'm saying? And what are the effects of that? And who's guiding this? Who are we listening to? What's their mindset? What's their culture like when it comes to this implementation? And I'm mainly talking about tech companies. They have a whole different cultural mindset than most of us who are do the daily work every day and are interacting with people on a consistent basis. And culturally, for those of us who are in Africa, have a different cultural mindset than those of us who are in the West. So we have to take that into consideration when it comes to technology as well. Just because somebody is in a car going faster than you does not mean that that's the path you need to take. And I have these challenges all the time when I'm speaking at certain tech places and talking to people who are like, "Oh, if you're in cybersecurity, why are you saying that we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that? You should be for technology." I am, but I'm for less. I'm for less evasive technology. Um, Privacy is huge for me, and it should be huge for everybody. I don't know if this is a conversation we should have on this platform, but um, the more, just to say this, the more technology we have, if you have not noticed, the less privacy we get. And I think that's something that we need to address as diasporans and Africans, since we are not on the level the West is on, this fast paced process that they're on. We should actually have a seat and get some popcorn and watch the show and see what's going to happen versus trying to hit the gas pedal to catch up with them when we don't even know where they're going. And they even said multiple times, we have no clue where we're going, but we're trying to get there fast. They've said this because profit drives everything. That's their culture. So I'm going to put the mic down. I've talked enough. I would love to get people's perspective on what I went over. And if you had any questions in regards to cybersecurity, please let me know. Please go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Yes, I have a question. When it comes to cybersecurity, what role do humans internally of an organization have when that intersection between security and human error? What is the significance and the impact of that?
That's a that's a loaded question. So humans are the greatest threat to any system. I'm just gonna be flat out and tell you. If there's a human in that system, there's a chance that that's an internal threat to the system itself. And that's based on what you're trying to protect. So I'm before I answer the question in depth, I'm going to have to kind of lay it out first. We first have to talk about systems, right? Nothing survives without a system in place. And there's five components to a system. There's the creator of the system, it's the administrator of the system, the shareholder of the system, the users, and the threat. Those five components exist in every system, whether it be digital, whether it be natural, whether it be civil, social, whatever. Those systems will always have those five components to it. So when we're looking at human interaction when it comes to technology, what is our um, interface in regards of whether something works or doesn't work, or whether we become a threat to the system? So if, for example, we all have email, right? And based on the culture of the corporation, the mindset of the employee working there, and the policies and the ability to enforce those policies and the access controls that you put in determines how big of an impact one person can have on a corporation. So if I am a person who's very nonchalant about what I'm doing security wise, and I'm going through my emails and I'm just clicking on things and not really reading what I'm seeing, and then all of a sudden an email catches my eye and I see a link there and I just click on it because it says something that I'm interested in. For example, let's say I'm a car enthusiast, and then someone sends me an email with a flyer that says, "Hey, there's a big car show happening at this mall on this day. Click on this link to register." And I don't even bother to look at the link or put the mouse over the link to see if it goes to a different location than where the link is. That is a huge problem if you don't have certain security controls in place, which also includes training. So, how well you train your people, how constant you train your people, and how well your access controls and your policies in place determine the outcome of how bad a situation would be if someone does something intentional, does something out of ignorance, or does something out of emotion, or they just or carelessness. So we have to. I hope that's answering your question. I know it's kind of wordy, but I kind of want to. It's not that simple to say a person can cause this much damage. There's layers that you'd have to have in place to protect or minimize the effect of it, and of it what we will call an insider threat.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Okay, well, I have a question for everyone. How does everyone feel about? I kind of made my spiel about AI, but where do you think we should go when it comes to AI and technology? Anybody can answer that one. You ain't got to raise your hand. Just unmute yourself and let's talk.
Well,
Well, I think with AI, I think it need to be a slowdown. And what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by slowdown, because money is driving the seat with AI, which is forcing people out of jobs, which causing errors across the
Mm-hmm.
entire system.
Mm-hmm.
AI should be meant to be a tool just like a hammer or a screwdriver or a screw gun, not something to replace the human thought. So my thing is, I think it needs to slow down
Mm-hmm. To what capacity?
to a capacity where as though it's not um, seen to the point where as though it can actually completely replace someone's job.
Okay.
Laws need to be put in place where as though, okay, if you run an AI here, there has to be a human here to monitor it, to make the decisions for it, uh, to be able to direct where it's supposed to go. Um, how
So
much
you're saying,
slowdown, I'm not sure, but
I
I
got
know
you.
it's just moving way too fast than it should be moving right now.
You thinking there should be a slight pivot from the direction that
Yeah,
they're
I think,
going. I see what you're
yeah, the
saying because
direction is going,
we
yeah, is
when they
wrong.
started talking about agentic AI. So when you said having a human person there, so what you're asking them is to maintain the authentication for an action. The AI says, "I want to do this." Human, what do you think? And they have to authenticate that action. They can say yes or no to it, and the AI will do it or won't do it. With this agentic I like what you're saying. It removes the human authentication process for its execution, and
Hmm.
I think that is also very dangerous,
Yeah.
especially when you have when you have an intelligence that has been documented. Once it has reached the ability to do for self, it does. It has you're limited to it being a machine now and more of a digital organism that wants to stay alive. Please, Miss Brooker, go ahead.
all right. So I don't think we have any control really of the speed of it. And I'm going to speak from the perspective from a
You're
person who,
you're kind of low, Galanda.
that's because I forgot to put my mic down. Thank
Oh, there
you.
you go.
Is this
There you
better?
go. Hmm.
That needed
Yes.
too.
Yeah, I'm speaking from the perspective of a person who both teaches other people about AI and a person who implements software that includes AI, including agentic AI. I
Mhm.
think that we don't really have any control on how quickly it's going to develop. What we can work to do is educate people on doing exactly what Harry says, working with AI as a tool as opposed to a replacement. It's an enhancement, not a replacement. And I think a lot of people are so in fear of being replaced that they're having difficulty saying, okay, um, how can I use this tool to make what my humanness be of more value? And
Mhm.
so I with my clients, I tell them the tool that I implement, I do not design with AI in mind. AI is the cherry and the sprinkles. It is not the banana
Mhm.
and the ice cream,
Hey.
right? Even with the agents, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a client shared an example just yesterday of where they're using an agent to pull stuff out of the email to put it into this system, right? It doesn't change what's in the email, but it extracts information and drops it somewhere else. And
Okay.
this then saves time what she was doing something manually. She still review it, like you said, the authentication of it is still there,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But because she's not spending the time going through, let's say, 50 emails and she's just verifying the information, it's made her job, she's more efficient in it. So the task is to one, have people stop being fearful of what they're not familiar with, and two,
Hmm.
consider it as a tool. This is something you can wield. It does not have to wield you. That's my
Hmm.
opinion.
I like your opinion. Um, I look at it from a data perspective, um, and that's my biggest concern. Something that can do something thousands of times faster than a human um, is very problematic, depending on where you put it. If I take an AI, agentic AI, and I have it controlling to, have my coffee at this time, even though I don't drink coffee, but have my lights cut on, cut off, do this, be my personal assistant, not a problem. But if I tie it to a traffic system, or if I tie it to social media like they're doing now, or if I tie it to military um, systems, it's very problematic. We all understand the terminology now that data is more expensive than gold now, right?
Mm,
Um, but has anybody asked why? Why is data more
mm,
expensive than gold? So I kind of didn't give you guys my background, but I've been doing this for 25 years.
mhm,
Most of it for the United States Navy and for the Department of Defense. Um, and because of what me and my wife both, we have about 25 years of experience, so 50 altogether. It's one of the reasons we removed ourselves from the Department of Defense and the United States, and it came to Ghana. Um, Data is huge. It's been huge for a long
mhm,
time, but it's been more prevalent now because it's easier to extract, analyze, and put into something
mhm,
of value versus it just being
mhm,
metadata, right? And I see that as a huge problem for someone who does not control where their data sits and do not
mhm,
control how their data is um, transited from an endpoint device to another location. Speaking from just that perspective of military and government, I find it very dangerous to incorporate an AI into that type of data collection, mainly because most governments and most militaries only use it for crowd control and population
mhm,
control. They don't really
mhm,
use it to enhance the military, but I mean,
mhm,
technically, enhancing the military, our goal is to pretty much protect
mhm,
resources, either defend the resources that we have or take the resources somebody else has. That's the basic concept of what a military does. And in regards of the government, it's convoluted because it has a lot of social constructs tied to it. But the the issue that I have is that we do not understand that we are consenting to removing the sovereignty of ourselves in this digital ecosystem. We teach our kids when they're young, when you're outside in the real world, don't talk to strangers. Don't give everybody your location where you live at if you don't know who they are. There's so many things that
mhm,
are taught to the youth. And I've gone to high schools and talked to kids and asked them these same questions. Hey, raise your hand if your parents told you to never talk to strangers. All the hands go up. Okay, cool. How many of you guys have social media accounts? All the hands stay up. How many of you got, just 10 people following you and they think I'm being disrespectful? 10. It's okay. How many of y'all got? Up to thousands of people following them. And then I go, okay, remember the first question I asked you? And all the eyes just light up. Yeah, you guys are talking to complete strangers, sometimes bots, and you're sharing
mhm,
your entire life with them, your entire life. because you don't communicate well with anybody nowadays. Everything is on this device, and you share your location all the time. You share what you're eating, you take pictures of it. All this information is tracked, collected, and gathered. Part of the things that I did was intelligence. Even though I was in
Hmm.
IT, we still work very close with intelligence. I don't need to see you to get access to you. I just need to find out
Absolutely.
where you're located at. And even though you're sharing this information with people, and I've even asked people questions, well, can you pull up anybody right now and just put your finger on them and say, I know who this person is because I spoke to them physically, or I spoke to them through an actual video chat, which is now compromised because AI can imitate CEOs, we found out, and voice and everything. So these are the things that I am getting at in regards to where AI is being implemented from a cybersecurity perspective, and that we need this kind of, I'm not saying slow down, but we should be putting in laws from a national perspective and from a family perspective as to what we share and what we allow on the internet. I mean, because right now there's too much information sharing because we've been socially engineered that this is the only way you can communicate with people. The more information you give, the more access you get to other stuff. And these privacy, what I call bully technology with privacy mafia style policies, is outrageous. But no one's seeing the no one outside of our community is seeing the writing on the wall that this is going to put us in a situation that we can't reverse from. We'd have to remove technology altogether in order for us to have
Hmm.
peace. And I don't want that.
Hmm.
I kind of like technology, but but if we're not careful, we will be consenting or conceding to our digital enslavement. Like I already see it. I tell young folks now who are trying to get on social media and become uh, um, influencers. I tell them find another job, and people will go, "Why we would tell that that's where the youth is at?" And I'm like, "Do you guys know how many AIs are monitoring and tracking everything that these young kids are doing?" I would give it maybe 3 more years, and all of a sudden now the algorithm isn't working. All of a sudden, all your followers aren't coming to you anymore. Well, where are they going now? Well, the AI version that on TikTok, the AI version of you on Instagram, the AI version of you on YouTube, the AI version of you on Facebook, and you can't stop that. And that plays consistently. All it did was run an algorithm of 20 or 30 of your best hits that you got the most clicks on. Then it duplicates you, and then everybody's there. People aren't there for you, they're there for the content. So if the AI can produce this 30 times, 40 times, 1,000 times faster than you, then how can you compete with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And one thing that you mentioned is one thing that I highlight, not just to young people, but to parents as
Hmm.
well, is in terms of privacy, they're like, oh, well, I didn't give them consent to do that. Actually, you did. You
Hmm.
didn't read the end user license agreements for
Nope.
any of these apps that you install,
Hmm.
even on your smart TVs.
Yes.
You
Oh
didn't,
my
you
goodness.
just went next, 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 and said, I didn't give them permission to do that. Actually, you did. You did because you didn't choose to take the time to read and see what type of information, aka data, aka gold, they are obtaining from you.
Hmm.
And so I think that education is, key in slowing down, remediating this process because as you said, people don't understand because unfortunately they're not reading. And I
Yeah.
know that because I am a higher ed instructor as well. And it can be a challenge to get them to read, and even those that read don't always comprehend. And this is a global problem. This is
Yes.
not a US problem. This is not a continental problem. It's a global issue. So, encouraging reading, comprehension, critical thinking is really the core way to mitigate these things that you're talking about.
But technology
Yeah.
is the reason why we're not reading as much. Technology is the reason why we're not comprehending as well. And technology is the reason why we're not able to understand simple concepts or even have the concepts you're
Well,
talking about when it comes to critical thinking.
Technology is, but it's
I think that's
parents.
part of it. I know it's
Yeah.
parents, but it's also government.
Mm,
It's
Yeah.
also the government chooses not to educate or not educate in the way that brings up thinkers. It brings, it chooses to educate. And a lot of governments, even in the US, even though, the US government, everybody's like, oh, US education. Even in the US, they choose not to educate in ways to make people as thinkers, but to make people as better workers.
Yes.
So,
And that's by
there's
design.
also, yeah, but it does start with the people, because if you're not demanding that your representatives do what they're supposed to do, and then do what you got to do to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, because sometimes, there's other stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it's a education, people's individual responsibility, governing body, the governing your governing government, of which you have citizenship, things like that. It's like more legs to the stool, I think, um, than what's been discussed here so far. But I wanted to
Of
say a
course.
couple other things.
Hmm.
Slow down. I'm definitely for slowing down as well, especially in because the like you said, the Western control over AI is making a Frankenstein beast out of this thing, and it's going way too fast. And there's in our in the U.S. we don't have a fast enough government to make laws. They still haven't made full enough laws for the cloud yet. Um, so with all of that going
By
on,
design.
we need to have guardrails. Um, and where we might not have as much control in the West, I do want to beg to argue with Galanda that I think we do more on the African continent
Oh,
if
I
we get
agree.
our acts together,
Yes.
and the governments, which seem to are starting to get the picture, it looks like, are starting to get their acts together, um, and hopefully no backsliding. But right now we have a, from the government perspective and the industry's perspective, especially from the industry more than the government right now, but a opportunity to slow it down, at least under our, in our sphere, Ghana, Africa, to
Hmm.
slow it down, to add the African context to it, and to make sure it's not a um, replacing people thing. Because, I've noticed still in, at least here in Ghana, and I think in other African countries, there's still, and a lot of other countries, there's still a lot of the Western mindset is not everywhere. There's still a lot of collaborative, um, I'm right now, I'm running out of words, but let's work together type cultures that are
Hmm.
more about making sure, as long as it's enough for everybody, that everybody is actually able to get. Now, of course, when scarcity comes up, then, things always come up when there's scarcity. But
Yeah.
the culture, for the most part, is giving and making sure that your brother, your family, your extended family are taken care of to the best of your ability. So I think something like that, we have, with that type of mindset here, I think we have an opportunity, especially where AI is still kind of new and still can be controlled, at least in some pockets, um, to slow it down, to add our context, and to make sure that it isn't something that becomes a, you or the machine type thing. But then we also need data sovereignty as well. But I'll let
Definitely.
Sigil go next, because I think he has his hand up now too.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, when it comes to AI, um, I'm more concerned about the data and also how the local person can make use of it. The person who hasn't gone through formal education can make use of it because in our context, Ghana, even Africa as a whole, the tools are usable here, but I would say they are not built for us, for our reality. I think although it's getting a bit better because a lot of us are using it, but it's got a long way to go. Most AI systems are trained on data from uh, Europe, America, so they, it understands their markets, their weather systems, their languages, and yeah, there are problems, but our context is different. So for me, it's really about building something or training it in a way that can understand us. For example, let's say the local farmer, how the local farmer doesn't need um, the generic AI answer about agriculture. Maybe if the farmer wants to get some information about agriculture, I would definitely come up with something pertaining to, let's say, California. Meanwhile, he needs advice based on our soil types, our weather, or maybe our market prices, or even our farming methods. So imagine an AI system where a farmer can even speak in Tree or other local languages and actually speak to the AI and ask some questions, because we know these farmers can't even read or type. So something that they can speak to it and it will speak, answer back to them in our local languages. And I think that's something that we should be looking at as um, a continent, instead of focusing uh, on something that has been built using Europe data and data that's outside the continent.
Okay. So I would say let's change the narrative and not use slow down, but pivot. Let's just pivot our technology. Like I said before, we don't have to follow anybody when it comes to technology. Our technology moves at the speed we want it to move at. The problem is we're being pushed as if we need to be a part of their technology, and we do not. And
Yep.
granted, 80% of the technology they have, we created. So um, we really don't need to follow their guidance on what to do with anything. You know, from the light bulb to the computer, we've in some form of fashion either created or influenced a lot of the technology that's right here today, from GPS to even AI. All these things had us.
Even the internet.
That's why it's called the web, Anansi.
Mhm.
In some form of fashion, we have created technology. The only problem is we never created it for monetization. We only created it for ease of use. They monetized it,
Yep.
not us, because we
Hmm.
felt that it should be for everybody. Hence the reason us creating it. But that
Hmm.
culture doesn't operate that way. It operates from lack.
Hmm.
If you study that culture, they value the lack of something. The less something is, the more valuable it is. That makes no sense, and I don't know why we've even adopted that concept. Why is this one fruit? There's only 10 of it. How is it valuable to my people? Or this watermelon is thousands of them. That has more value to me than these two or three fruits in a basket that maybe you can only pick every 2 years. Or I can get two or three, acres or hectares of watermelon in 2 cycles. That has more value to me than this. But because that is the culture they operate under, to think about that. Culture drives innovation, innovation drives technology. So if you have a culture of lack, your innovation will always be something that's lacking, and therefore your technology you create will create more lack. And if you look at the technology they have now, they're in charge of it. You get less and less of it, and they get more and more of it. So the access
Hmm.
control has been flipped to where we used to have control of all of our information. Now we ain't got control of nothing if we get on their device. And we can't stop it because, as
Hmm.
you said, we consent to it because we didn't read the privacy statements. Or it wasn't in there when we read it, and then they included it later because they can change it anytime they feel like. Because so now you
Hmm.
go from consenting to conceding, like it doesn't even matter
Hmm.
if I read it. They're going to change next week anyway. So
Yeah.
those are the two
Yeah.
things that I've had to deal with personally. Like, should I even get on Teams? Should I even get on Instagram? Should I even get on TikTok? And I've told people, man, look, just call me locally. I can't get on that platform. And they go, why? Because if I do, what am I gaining versus what am I losing? And then people concede and say, well, it don't matter. They're tracking you anyway. So why are you even bothered about one application when they already got your information 2, 3 years ago? And they got your biometric data 4 years ago when you all had digital biometric on the new phone because you wanted to try the new feature out. They already got your data. Why are you worried about it now? I'm like, well, one, things with me change. That's why. So I don't want them to continuing to see the changes that I'm making. What they have of me maybe 10 years ago. You see what I'm saying? Now the problem is the biometric data. That doesn't change. And that's something that I wish we could push more as to not using in regards of authenticating. I wish we could do that because that's the one thing that does not change. You know, even here in Ghana, why am I doing you biometrics to get a SIM card for a
Yeah.
phone? This makes no sense. And then every time I need to do something with my phone, I got to do my biometrics again. Where's the first one that I gave you? Where's the data center that is stored in? What do you mean you have a data center? Then pull it up. Oh, you don't know where it is. Can I talk to your manager? Do you know where your data center is? Oh, it's here in Ghana. Where? You don't know. Okay, I know where it's at. It's in the UK. That's where your data center is at. That's where Microsoft's data center is at. Microsoft has two data centers. They have one in South Africa and they got one in the UK just for Africa. So everything in the Western region and Northern region goes up to the UK, and everything in the Mid East and South goes to South Africa just for latency purposes. But but why don't we have our own data centers? Why are we not cultivating our own data? And why do we feel like others have every right to access us the way they feel? This is all encompassing of, I know people are thinking about it, cybersecurity, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. I need to authenticate who has access to my information. I need to make sure my information has been changed or altered. Like pictures of me on the internet now can be changed and altered, and I can be on some AI doing something else, making committing a crime, and they have my face on the body saying it was me. Here's the information. Here's the information right here. And then the availability, the fact that they can cut up the switch at any time and unplug us from the internet, we have no redundancies. What do we do when they decide to make us go dark, like last year? We have to look at technology for what it is, the learning of a technique. But we have the process, the power, the innovation, the ingenuity to have our own technology. So why are we following behind a group or a ideology that doesn't even fit our narrative? And that's my biggest, I say, mind hack is that if we're leopards, why are we following lions?
Yeah.
Animals do as they please in the species that they operate in. No one's trying to be nobody else. Why are we constantly trying to be something that we're not? Granted, I know enslavement and colonization are two biggest pieces that created this. But now that we know about
Mhm.
it, why are we not even trying to reverse it? Why are we accepting it and not becoming something else? Because our technology will always be utilized. Our technology will always be implemented, but we won't always have control of it, and we won't always be the ones to tell you or managing it. And that's something that I fight dearly and wish that we would put more emphasis towards when it comes to data protection and digital sovereignty. So that is the end of my presentation. If y'all have anything else, I'm open to any other questions or queries that people may have. Um, I love this platform that you guys have created. It's amazing. I will definitely be on here again at your request, of course. And just to come in, just be a spectator and listen to the new content you guys are having. I appreciate you guys putting this together because it's needed. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Oops, sorry. Okay. All righty. So that was quite the conversation. And now we have a little bit of time to just do a little bit more conversation. We have about 20 minutes left. So we have about 15 minutes in which we can have some networking time. So for those of you who'd like to participate, these are the topics that we talk about. We introduce ourselves by giving our name, location, what technical field we're in, if we work for a company or a school, and then our purpose for joining. And then we talk about how we think the tech that was presented during today can be applied to the Ghanaian context, which we already had a lot of discussion, but if there's other ideas that come up, we can definitely have it. And then we're also looking for ideas for engaging more Ghanaians and Africans in the tech community. We've noticed that a lot of people get on WhatsApp, but want to see what other types of avenues, if you have any, that you should or would like to suggest that we use when advertising our free event, our free monthly events. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Nakia Carter. I'm located in Tema at this moment, and the field that I'm in is tech under Microsoft for the most part, but I also came from a background of coding. A company is NTC Tech, where I'm co-CEO, and Sister Tech, where I am CTO, and then co-founder for Ananse Tech, as well as co-founder for another group that we have, which is the business side of this kind of technical community called the Power Hour, the Microsoft Productivity Power Hour. So my purpose of joining is to, of course, keep the knowledge and the sharing going by hosting events such as these. So how do I think the content presented today can apply, especially in the Ghanaian or African context? I mean, I kind of talked at length about, a bit at length about AI, and from the cybersecurity context, I believe that we definitely need to have a cybersecurity mindset and have one that, along with the technology, that actually fits the African slash Ghanaian context. So as we're building more content, not more content, more tech in Africa, then we should all start, moving towards that tech as it becomes stable, and it will become stable. Um, so we want to encourage that, and we want to participate in it and help out with testing and all the things that happens when new technology emerges. We want to make sure we support our own. When it comes to project management, this is something that is one of those soft skills that I think may still be lacking, not only in Ghana, but across projects, period. There's a lot of technical teams that work the tech part, and they do a great job working the tech part as far as delivering, technical, deliveries that make sense technically. But as Galanda said, sometimes that technical delivery doesn't necessarily reach the business side. So the great work that you did might not necessarily be translating to great work from the customer's perspective. And then also, scope creep is a real big concern. Misalignment of requirements is a real big concern. Um, Making sure deadlines are met, that's a really big concern. So making sure that somebody has their eye fully on the ball and not partially on the ball um, can be help your tech delivery just be so much better. So I think that that is something, along with other soft skills, needs to be focused on a lot in Ghana and across Africa, but especially in Ghana, where we have, or at least I've seen directly, we have a lot of highly technical, highly creative and innovative folks, but the customer service skills are lacking. The account management is lacking. Managing projects, delivering on time, being on time to meetings, things like that. Some of the soft skills need to also be focused on, which is why we also have career and tech career topics during our tech community events. It's not just about tech, it's also being about the go-to person that people can rely on for tech deliveries that are reliable. Anyone else want to come off mute and join in the conversation?
I don't think I really introduced myself, so maybe I'll take this opportunity. My name is Galanda Brooker again. I am in Cape Coast. I have a very wide variety background, not unlike my co-speaker. In the States, I worked for government entities, including Department of Education, Department of State, as well as state agencies like Maryland Department of Transportation. And I also worked for corporate, banks and things of that nature. And I've done the whole gamut, database, programming, networking, all of that. And ended up toward the end is where I did more even SharePoint administration and implementations as well. And toward the end, I was more project management. I don't, I do still teach higher ed in the US. I've been doing that for about 18 years, and I teach remotely. I did used to teach on the ground as well. Uh, and my purposes for joining is that I still think education is really important in tech. I will not, I will be transparent and say when I came to Ghana, I was like, I'm not doing no more tech stuff. I'm sick of tech. I'm over it. I'm tired. But here I am still contributing and making sure because, I do think it's really important for people to be educated. And I love teaching. Outside of the teaching, I do wellness services as well. I'm a certified yoga instructor, naturopath, meditation facilitator, and energy healing as well. And I do coaching. So I really love my co-speaker's title, Cybersecurity Mindset, because, that's really important, the way that you think and how you process information. Um, and so, how can we get Ghanaians more engaged? Because the population is so young, you got to go where the young people are in the schools, in the streets. And as much as we um, would like to disengage them from their devices, we have to figure out a way to also use those devices to engage them. As an instructor, I use games and play as part of the education process. And so, yes, for those that have the tool, then let's use it, right? For those who don't, then or also implementing conversation like this, like that we're having now, face-to-face conversation. Nobody has their phone out having the conversation. We're talking to one another, and really having in-depth conversations about what does it mean to think critically and clearly. So I think, volunteering to do that, or even if, you can get partnerships to work, but it's not just the young people. People that are considered adults also need this level of engagement as well. So uh, let's see. And my purpose for joining? Because I want Black people to win everywhere. That's my answer.
All right. Thanks so much, Yolanda. We still have about 5 more minutes. So anybody else want to join in? We have time for one more person.
Pick somebody. Pick somebody.
We
We have a
call that
saying in it.
voluntold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
y'all got.
voluntold.
We also got a saying that quiet
Okay.
mouths don't get fed. So come
I
on,
see
y'all.
you just
Say
came off
something.
a mute, Benjamin.
Mhm. Hi, Benjamin.
Oh, hi. I'm Benjamin. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I work with secure cyber IT. And this is my first time coming on this community of,
Welcome.
say, professionals of the field on cybersecurity tech and in Africa. So I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed when we talked about the communication gap, talking on CIDC, talking on timeliness, and when Matthias was unveiling how we have proliferation of data in Africa, and how we don't have our own database, depending on, should I say, on the Western world in collecting our data, and probably we don't know what we're doing to ourselves. So I wouldn't want to go in depth. I enjoyed myself in this seminar or webinar. So just want to introduce myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you for introducing yourself. We very much appreciate that. And well, since we got like 7 minutes left, I'll go ahead and wrap up. All right. So thanks again for joining us. If you want to try some of the things, so sometimes we go through demos, SharePoint development, Power Platform, maybe Power Apps or something like that, and you want to try it, you can get your own free-ish Microsoft development account. And the reason why I say it's free-ish now is because you have to actually have a Visual Studio professional or enterprise license in order to get one now. But if you do have it, you can scan the QR code, go to the site and sign up and get your free account. It rolls over every year. So as long as you're using it, Microsoft will keep it up to date. Before it used to be free, but now if you want a free account, you can set up one for 30 days, set up a 30-day trial and then extend it out to 90 days. But then after that, of course, it's going to get blown away unless you pay for it. Okay. So again, thank you so much for joining us for this month's community call. We hope you enjoyed learning and networking with us. On this slide, you can see the QR codes for joining the community, for the place where you'll be able to get the slides from after when we post the recap. The recap will also be posted to the Ananse community page. You can give us feedback and do the post-event survey to let us know that how we're doing. And our next meeting is going to be on the 26th of March. And the QR code is here as well as a link. So when you get a copy of the slides, you'll be able to click on the link if you prefer the link as opposed to the QR code. But the next month's topic for March will be level up your work, tech skills, soft skills, and smart tools that pay off. So we hope that you all enjoy and will join us in March. Have a good night.